My fiancée, Jessica, and I were at dinner just 8 weeks before our wedding. I thought it was going to be a romantic night. Then she slid a folder across the table. Before we take the next step, she said, her voice serious, "I think we need to address a few things." I opened it. It was a laminated document. The first line hit me like a punch to the gut. Requirement 1, increase salary by a minimum of 40% within 12 months. Current salary is inadequate for our lifestyle goals. She was watching me, expecting a fight, an argument. I just looked at her, my voice eerily calm. You know what? You're right. I respect your honesty. I should have seen it coming. Hindsight is always 20/20 right. I'm Michael, 32 years old. By trade, I'm a financial analyst. My life runs on data projections and 5-year plans. For the last 5 years, my biggest project, my safest investment, was my relationship with Jessica. She was 29, worked in marketing, and she was radiant. The kind of person who could walk into a room and just own it. I was the quiet one, the planner. She was the bright, spontaneous one. It worked, or so I thought. We had a plan. We always had a plan. We'd mapped it out on a napkin on our 3rd anniversary. Pay off for student loans, check. Save for a down payment, check. Buy a house, check. The last step was the wedding, the start of our family. I was a man who believed in foundations, in building something solid brick by brick. And Jessica, well, Jessica was more interested in the facade. She was obsessed with image. Her Instagram feed was a curated gallery of other people's perfect lives. Trips, we couldn't afford cars. We didn't need houses that were twice the size of ours. Look at them, Michael, she'd say, showing me a photo of some influencer couple in Bali. They're really living. I always thought it was just aspirational talk. I didn't realize it was a performance review of my entire existence. The red flags were there, scattered like landmines I just walked right over. It started small, little comments about my car. It's so practical. She'd say the word practical tasting like an insult. Then it was, my friends. Don't you think you should network more? You know, with people who are going places. What she meant was my friends, the guys I'd known since college, weren't impressive enough for her social circle. They were engineers, teachers, guys with real jobs, but not the right kind of brand. And then there was Ryan, my cousin. He was 30, a smooth talker who sold luxury real estate and always seemed to have a new watch or a new story about some big shot he'd just had drinks with. Jessica loved it. Over the last year, he started coming around more. Always when I was at work, just dropping something off for Aunt Susan, he'd say, "Ryan's just so funny. He's like a brother to me." Jessica would tell me later. A brother, right? I saw the way he looked at her. I saw the way she lit up when he was around. But I trusted her. That was my mistake. I looked at the data points and I chose to ignore the obvious trend line. That Kinko's laminated list she gave me at dinner, it wasn't just about the money. That was just the headline. The fine print was so much worse. It wasn't just a 40% salary increase. It was a complete overhaul of me. Phase out friends Corey and James, one bullet point read, their mindset is a negative influence on our potential. My friends, the guys who helped me move into our first apartment, the guys who were supposed to be my groomsmen. Another section was titled Personal Branding. It mandated golf lessons at the local country club for networking purposes and a complete wardrobe change with an attached Pinterest board of approved looks. She wasn't just asking me to change, she was trying to delete the person I was and install a new operating system, a version of me that would look better in her Instagram photos. And the worst part, she did it all with the calm, smiling confidence of a CEO presenting a quarterly report. She genuinely believed she was helping, that she was investing in my potential. She didn't see me as a partner, she saw me as a fixer-upper project with a disappointing return on investment. And she had just put me on notice. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind, the part of me that runs on logic and patterns, was on fire. Her proposal, her list, it wasn't a change of heart, it was a business transaction. There was a variable, missing a piece of data, she wasn't showing me. And in my world, you don't make a decision until you have all the data. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I went to the living room, opened my laptop, and on a hunch, a gut feeling that felt more like a logical deduction. I logged into our Ring security camera account. I just wanted to see her face as she left. Was she sad, relieved? But my analyst brain took over. I didn't stop at that night. I scrolled back. A day, 2 days, a week. And then I saw it. Click. The video loaded. Thursday, 2 p.m. While I was at work running numbers to pay for the caterer she'd picked out, there he was, Ryan, my cousin. He walked up to our front door and Jessica opened it. They kissed. It wasn't a peck on the cheek, it was a full, deep, pull her in by the waist kiss. The kind you don't give your brother. My hands started shaking, I kept scrolling. He'd been coming over for months, always between 1 and 4 p.m., always when I was at the office. Sometimes he stayed for hours. The betrayal was so methodical, so scheduled. It was an operation. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it was a clip from the day before she gave me the list. Wednesday, Brett and Jessica standing on our porch looking at his phone, they were laughing. I took a screenshot, opened it in a photo editor, and enhanced the image. Thank God for 4K cameras. They were on a website, a wedding venue website. The Oakmont estate, the ridiculously expensive place we'd joked we could never afford. And I could see the date they were selecting on the booking form. October 14th. My wedding date. Our exact wedding date. The room went cold. The air left my lungs. For an hour, I just sat there staring at the frozen image on the screen. The rage was a physical thing, a hot spike in my chest. But then something else took over, the analyst. The part of me that doesn't panic, the part that sees a crisis and starts building a spreadsheet, she had made a critical error. She had underestimated her project. She thought she was dealing with a heartbroken fiancé. She wasn't. She was dealing with a forensic audit. I didn't smash the laptop. I didn't throw my phone against the wall. I picked it up and called James. My voice was steady. Hey, it's me. Remember that hypothetical situation we talked about? There was a pause. It's not hypothetical anymore, is it? No, I said. It's a hostile takeover, and I need a strategy. First rule, James said, his voice instantly sharp. Don't confront. Don't show your hand. You are still the loving, patient, slightly confused fiancé. Got it. Got it. Good, he said. Now go to work. Become an investigator. Data is your weapon. Use it. Then I got to work. First, the venue. I created a new email address, John Smith Consulting, something bland and corporate. I wrote a polite inquiry to the Oakmont estate. Hello, my clients are interested in booking for a wedding on October 14th. The reply came within an hour. Thank you for your interest, Mr. Smith. Unfortunately, that date is currently on hold for the Morrison-Davidson wedding. Morrison. Ryan's last name, Davidson. Jessica's maiden name, confirmation. I saved the email as a PDF. Evidence item 1. Next, the money. I logged into the joint credit card account. The one I paid off every month, the one she used for wedding expenses. I downloaded the last 6 months of statements. It was a sea of data, and I dove in like it was a quarterly earnings report. I wasn't looking for her usual spending, I was looking for anomalies. And I found them. A $2,000 charge at a bridal boutique I'd never heard of. A $500 deposit for a photographer whose name was not on our vendor list. A $300 tasting menu at a restaurant on a day she told me she was having dinner with her sister. Each charge was a lie, a neat little entry in her secret ledger. I highlighted every single one. Evidence item 2. Finally, I opened a blank Excel spreadsheet. This was my territory. I created a new file and I named it with a sense of cold, grim satisfaction. Fraud Project Jessica D. I built it from scratch. Column A, date of incident. Column B, description of deception. Column C, source of evidence ring, video, email, credit card statement. Column D, financial impact. I spent the rest of the night populating it. Every secret visit from Ryan timestamped. Every fraudulent charge itemized. Every lie documented. I even added a tab for non-financial damages with notes about the friends she wanted me to cut off, the hobbies she wanted me to quit. The spreadsheet was beautiful. It was cold, logical, and brutal. It stripped away all the emotion and left only the hard, undeniable facts. This wasn't a messy breakup anymore. It was a data-driven analysis of a hostile asset seizure. And I had just finished my report. I had my plan. And I was going to execute it with the precision of a stock trade. She wanted me to be more ambitious. She was about to get her wish. For the next week, I played the part of the compliant, heartbroken fiancé. I was quiet. I was thoughtful. I sent her texts like, still thinking about what you said, and this is hard, but I understand. Every word was a carefully placed piece of bait, and she took it every single time. Jessica, believing my silence was submission, grew bold. Her text became less about her needing space and more about our exciting new future. She sent me links to BMW configurators. The X5 would look so good on you, one message read. She sent me the curriculum for an online MBA program. Look, honey, we can start planning your application essays now. She saw my silence not as a warning, but as a blank canvas on which she could paint her perfect life with her perfect upgraded husband. She had no idea I was in my own war room turning her plan into evidence against her. Then on Monday, she made her move. She called, her voice dripping with the kind of fake sympathy that makes your skin crawl. "Michael, honey," she started. "I've been thinking about us. A lot. And I know this is hard for you to process. All this change, it can be overwhelming. I just listened, letting the silence hang." So she continued, "I did something. I found this amazing couples therapist, Dr. Albright. She specializes in helping couples navigate, ambition imbalances and communication breakthroughs." There it was, the trap. It was so obvious, so perfectly, Jessica. She wasn't suggesting therapy to heal us. She was hiring a referee who she thought would be on her side. She wanted a professional, an expert, to sit me down and validate her entire laminated list of demands. She wanted someone with a PhD to tell me that I was the one with the problem, that my resistance to growth was what was holding us back. It was a strategic, manipulative masterpiece, and it was going to be her undoing. I let out a long, slow breath, a perfect imitation of a man who was weary but willing. "Jessica," I said, my voice soft, that's really thoughtful of you." I could almost hear her smile through the phone. "I just want what's best for us, Michael. I think she can really help us get on the same page." "When's the appointment?" I asked. "Wednesday," she said, a little too quickly. 2 p.m. I already booked it. I can send you the address. This was it, the end game, the venue she had chosen for my public re-education. I paused, letting the silence stretch, making her wait for it. "A wonderful idea, honey," I said finally. "I'll be there." I hung up the phone and immediately dialed James. "The game has changed," I said, my voice no longer soft. It was cold. "The final meeting is scheduled. Wednesday, 2 p.m. We're playing on her field now." James laughed. "Her field, Michael? She just handed us the home field advantage. A controlled environment with a third-party witness. It's a gift." For the next 48 hours, we prepared. This wasn't just about printing out a few screenshots. This was a corporate-level presentation. I took the Fraud Project Jessica D spreadsheet and turned it into a full-blown report, complete with an executive summary, indexed evidence, and a concluding financial impact analysis. James handled the legal side, drafting a formal separation agreement and a demand letter for the fraudulent charges all ready to be presented. We didn't just print the documents, we had them professionally bound at Kinko's, the same place she likely laminated her list of demands. We made 3 copies, one for me, one for her, and one for Dr. Albright, the unwitting moderator of Jessica's downfall. We were not coming to argue. We were coming to present a finding. The case was closed. All that was left was the sentencing. On Wednesday morning, I texted Jessica, feeling nervous but hopeful about today. "See you at 2. She replied with a heart emoji. The mouse was walking toward the cheese with no idea the trap was about to spring. The therapist's office was exactly as you'd imagine it. Soft lighting, neutral-colored furniture, the faint scent of eucalyptus. It was a space designed for calm, for vulnerability, for finding common ground. It was the perfect stage for Jessica's final performance. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on the plush sofa, looking small and fragile. Dr. Albright, a woman in her late 50s with a kind, professional face, greeted me warmly. "Michael, thank you for coming. Jessica has been sharing some of the challenges you've both been facing." I nodded, taking the armchair opposite them. "I'm here to listen." Jessica began. And she was good. I had to give her that. She spoke in a soft, trembling voice about her fears for our future. She painted me not as a bad person, but as a man who was stuck, who was afraid of his own potential. She talked about her list not as an ultimatum, but as a roadmap for our shared success. She even managed to squeeze out a few tears when she described how my lack of ambition made her feel insecure and alone. She was weaving a narrative, a compelling story of a loving woman trying desperately to save a man from his own mediocrity. Dr. Albright was nodding along, her expression filled with sympathy. She was buying it. Every word. She talked for 20 minutes straight. I didn't interrupt. I just sat there, my hands clasped my face, a mask of neutral attention. I watched her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw a stranger, a very convincing actress who had cast me as the villain in her own story. When she finally finished, her voice thick with fake emotion, she looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I just want us to be a power couple, Michael. Is that so wrong?" Dr. Albright turned to me. "Michael," she said gently, "thank you for listening so patiently. What are your feelings about what Jessica has shared? This was the moment, the pivot. The entire game was about to change on this one sentence. I let the silence hang in the air for a second, 2 seconds, letting the weight of Jessica's performance settle. She was looking at me, a mixture of hope and smug confidence on her face. She thought she had won. She thought the expert was on her side. Then I smiled, a small, cold smile that didn't reach my eyes. Jessica, I said, my voice quiet but carrying across the room, everything you've said is right. I have been lacking ambition. I saw her relax, a wave of relief washing over her. I've been lacking ambition, I repeated, in finding out the truth. The smile vanished from her face. Dr. Albright looked confused, and right on cue, there was a polite knock on the door. It opened, and James walked in, dressed in a sharp suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked like death in a pinstripe suit. I apologize for the interruption, Dr. James said, his voice calm and authoritative. My name is James Miller. I'm Mr. Thompson's legal counsel. Jessica's face went white. She looked from James to me, her mouth opening and closing, but no words coming out. There seems to be a misunderstanding. James continued, walking to the coffee table in the center of the room. This isn't a therapy session. This is a preliminary legal mediation. He clicked open his briefcase with a sound that echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. What? What is this? Jessica stammered, looking at me. Michael, what is going on? It's a data review, Jessica, I said simply. You wanted to discuss our future. I'm just making sure we have all the relevant facts on the table. James laid the first document on the table. It was a large, glossy printout of a screenshot from the Ring camera, a perfect, high-resolution image of her and Ryan kissing at our front door. We'll start with Exhibit A, James said. Footage from your shared residence dated September 18th. Jessica stared at it, her skin turning a sickly shade of pale. Exhibit B, James continued, placing the next document down. It was the printout of the email from the Oakmont estate with the words, Morrison-Davidson wedding, October 14th, circled in red. Confirmation of a secondary wedding venue booking made while my client was under the impression you were still engaged to him. Dr. Albright's professional demeanor had evaporated. She was watching this unfold like a tennis match, her head snapping between the documents and Jessica's crumbling face. And Exhibit C, James said, his voice relentless. He spread out the highlighted credit card statements, a detailed accounting of $2,300 for a wedding dress, $500 for a photographer, and $300 for a catering, tasting all charged to my client's account for a wedding he was not invited to. He let the evidence sit there. The room was silent, except for the sound of Jessica's ragged breathing. The professional, the expert, the entire system she had tried to use against me was now a witness to her exposure. Then it was my turn. I leaned forward and placed the final document on the table, right on top of the others. It was my masterpiece, the bound report from Kinko's. On the cover, in a simple, bold font, were the words, Fraud Project Jessica D. and Analysis of Financial and Fiduciary Misconduct. This is for you, I said, sliding a copy to her and another to Dr. Albright. It's a complete breakdown of the last 6 months. Every secret visit time-stamped, every fraudulent charge itemized, every lie cross-referenced with evidence. It's a comprehensive analysis of the cost of your ambition. Jessica didn't touch it. She just stared at it as if it were a snake. She looked at me, her eyes finally showing a flicker of something real. Not sadness, not remorse, just pure, unadulterated terror. The terror of a master manipulator who has just lost all control. The game is over, Jessica, I said, my voice no louder than a whisper. And that's when she broke. Not with a scream, but with a silent, ugly unraveling. Her face just seemed to collapse in on itself. Dr. Albright, no longer a kind therapist, but a shocked and offended professional, stood up. Miss Davidson, she said, her voice sharp and cold, I believe this session is over. My office is not a venue for fraud or deception. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Now. Jessica just sat there, frozen, a statue of her own shattered ambition. The checkmate was complete. And it was devastating. The fallout wasn't a single explosion. It was a series of controlled demolitions, each one planned, each one executed, with the same cold precision as my report. I didn't stop at the therapist's office. That was just the public unveiling. The real work was making the consequences unavoidable. That night, I took my professionally bound fraud project report, placed it in a crisp manila envelope, and sent it via courier to Jessica's parents, David and Cynthia. I didn't include a bitter letter or an angry tirade. I simply attached a cover sheet with the title "Formal Request for Reimbursement of Fraudulent Wedding-Related Expenditures." It wasn't an accusation from a heartbroken ex-fiancé. It was an invoice from a creditor. It was business. I gave them 48 hours to respond before I would have James file a civil suit for the full amount, a suit that would make the entire sordid affair a matter of public record. For people like David and Cynthia, who lived and breathed for their reputation at the country club, the choice was simple. Humiliation was temporary, but a public lawsuit was a permanent stain. Less than 24 hours later, a check for the full amount, every single penny she had stolen and spent, was delivered to my lawyer's office. There was no note, no apology, just money. The transaction was complete. They had bought my silence, not realizing I never intended to make it a public spectacle. I just wanted my assets back. The consequences for Ryan were just as swift. The news of what happened at the therapist's office, and more importantly at the Oakmont estate, spread through our family like a wildfire. He wasn't just the guy who cheated, he was the guy who tried to steal his own cousin's wedding date, a detail so bizarrely villainous that no one could defend it. His own father, my uncle, called me to apologize. My grandmother, the family matriarch, officially disowned him. His name was not to be spoken at family gatherings. But the real blow came from the woman he was also lying to. She didn't just leave him. She created a shared Google Doc with all of his lies, complete with screenshots of his texts to both her and Jessica, and shared it with their entire circle of friends. He wasn't just dumped, he was socially executed. But Jessica, her downfall was different. It was quieter and, in a way, more complete. She had lost me. She had lost Ryan, who now wouldn't even answer her calls. And she had lost her parents' financial backing. All she had left was her image, her network, her carefully curated circle of friends. She tried to rally them. She called the girls. She went to brunch with the ones who always commented with fire emojis on her posts. She tried to spin her story, the one where I was the controlling, vindictive villain, but the story was already out. And her friends, they weren't her friends, they were business contacts. And she had just become a toxic asset. The calls went unanswered, the brunch invitations stopped. She was suddenly completely alone. And as I heard about this through the grapevine about her frantic unanswered calls and her sudden social invisibility, I realized a truth that was bigger than just her betrayal. It was the inevitable, predictable collapse of something called fragile social capital. Why did Jessica's world disintegrate so quickly? The answer lies in the concept of social capital. You see, there are two types. There's bonding capital, which is built on deep trust, genuine affection, and shared history. And then there's bridging capital, which is built on surface-level connections, mutual benefit, and image. My social capital, though smaller, was the bonding type. It was James, my friend, who stood by me without a second thought. It was my family who saw the truth and rallied around me. It was built on rock. Jessica's entire network, on the other hand, was bridging capital. Her friends were the people who admired the potential of our power couple future, who were connected to her because of the status she projected. The foundation of her world wasn't trust, it was transaction. So when the financial and social platform that I provided was ripped away, her social capital didn't just diminish, it evaporated. Those friends didn't betray her. They simply acted according to the unwritten rules of their relationship. When the benefit is gone, the connection is terminated. It was a brutal lesson in the danger of building a life on surface-level values instead of genuine human connection. She had built her castle on sand, and the tide of truth had just washed it all away. The aftermath wasn't about celebration, it was about closing the books. The check from Jessica's father cleared. Every dollar she'd siphoned off for her fantasy life with Ryan was back in my account. For a moment, I just stared at the balance. It wasn't a victory, it was a recovery of stolen assets. So I treated it like one. I didn't go on a spending spree. I didn't buy a new car to spite her. I'm an analyst. I reallocated the funds. I took a portion and maxed out my retirement contributions for the next 2 years. I put another chunk into a high-yield savings account, labeling it Future House Solo Project. The rest, I invested it in myself. I reconnected with the friends Jessica had labeled as negative influences. I called Corey and James. I'm free was all I said. That weekend, we didn't go to some fancy club. We went to our old dive bar, played pool, and talked about nothing and everything. It felt like coming home. The peace I felt in that moment laughing at a stupid joke with my real friends was worth more than any BMW she could have ever wanted. I was free. Free from the constant pressure to perform, to upgrade, to be someone I wasn't. Free from checking my phone, wondering what passive-aggressive comment I would find. Free from the weight of her ambition, which had become my burden. Jessica's new life was a different kind of quiet. She moved back into her childhood bedroom at her parents' house. The same room with the faded posters on the wall and the twin bed she'd slept in during high school. There was no screaming, no fighting, just a heavy, suffocating silence. Her father, David, would just look at her with a quiet, profound disappointment that was worse than any lecture. Her mother, Cynthia, who had once been her biggest cheerleader, now just cooked her meals and said nothing. They had paid to make the problem go away, and now the problem was living down the hall. Her designer bags, the ones she'd bought with my money, sat in a corner of her room collecting dust. Useless trophies from a war she had started and lost. Her friends, her network had vanished. There were no more brunch invitations, no more girls' nights out. Her phone, which used to buzz constantly with notifications and validation, was now mostly silent. She had built her entire identity on an image, and when that image shattered, there was nothing left underneath. She was a brand without a product, a ghost in her own past. The final scene of this chapter played out last Friday night. I was at my place, not our place anymore, my place. James and Corey were over, we had pizza and cheap beer. The TV was on some game I wasn't even watching. We were just talking, laughing. The easy, genuine laughter you only have with people who know you, the real you. And in the middle of it all, I looked at my phone sitting face up on the coffee table. It was dark, no texts, no missed calls, no drama, just silence. And in that silence, I felt a sense of peace that was deeper and more valuable than any number in any bank account. I had won, not by destroying her, but by rebuilding me. People have called it the perfect revenge. They saw the story, the data, the check, and they saw a victory. And in a way, they're right. I won. But sitting here in the quiet of my new life, I've come to realize it was never about revenge. Revenge is a hot, messy, emotional thing. What I did, it was an audit. It was a course correction. It wasn't about hurting her. It was about protecting me. It was about reclaiming my own value, a value she had tried to write down and mark for depreciation. The real victory wasn't the moment I got the money back. It was the moment I chose my own sanity over the chaos of her expectations. It was the moment I chose logic over a fight I could never win. This story has a satisfying ending because I was successful. But I've asked myself this question 100 times since it all went down. What if the plan had failed? What if I hadn't been able to recover the money? Would the decision to act, to walk away, still have been the right one? The answer is absolutely 100% yes. We're all wired with something called outcome bias. We have a tendency to judge a decision as right or wrong based purely on the result. But the true value of what I did wasn't about getting a check from her father. It was in the moment I chose my own self-respect over a toxic, one-sided negotiation for my soul. The success of walking away isn't measured by your bank account. It's measured by the peace you reclaim for yourself. Regardless of how it all turned out, the act of defending my own boundaries, of refusing to be remade into someone else's project, was a victory in itself. The financial recovery was just a nice ending. The victory of character, the real win, happened the moment I looked at her list of demands and chose myself. That was the moment I truly got my life back.